Hello everybody, welcome back to FDE. What an amazing week this was. I am so excited to review this. It was an absolute blast. Coming from last race to this race, total improvement, overall so much better, but a lot of it has to do with some of the stuff that I was talking about in the last video about not only track prep, but karts and racers setting up the track the way it needs to be designed. This week, a big crew came out. It is the Hoosiers Great Plains series. They're a traveling series that goes around to different tracks and race. And this week was Casey Raceway's moment with the track. A crazy weekend. There was everything. There was good racing. There was some bad racing. There were crashes. There were arguments, to say the least. But overall, just such an amazing experience. And honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better time. The people were absolutely amazing, super nice people, except for the few that had disagreements. I'm not going to go into that. But overall, so happy with how things turned out this weekend. I wasn't expecting much out of the race, and it's because I know what I'm running. I'm running a kart that is super old, 15 years old. I was running brand new tires. The staggers were different from what I had previously ran, and I didn't know how the kart was gonna act. I was totally just going into this as we're just gonna have a practice day. We're gonna send it with whatever we got and see what happens. Surprisingly, it handled amazing. It was the fastest that kart has ever been. It's the fastest the track has ever been. In my opinion, it's the best the track has ever been set up. And to the drivers, thank you for making this track what it could be. I talked about in the last video about the potential of this track, and this was a shining light of what this thing could be. Such an amazing experience. One of the things that I was super proud of is that there were 19 karts in my class. And that is such a huge, intimidating thing because our normal races, there's only 2 of us, maybe 3 at best. But to have 19 karts come in and that's your competition is very, in my opinion, intimidating because I have no idea where I stand. I have no idea how well the kart is set up. I have no idea how well my driving is. And to really put you as a driver and your kart and your setup to the test against 19 other people that you've never raced against before is intimidating, to say the least. It is nerve-wracking, and I will say the entire day my stomach was upside down. Needless to say, I'm really good about once an event happens or once it starts, the nerves go away, everything starts to fall into place, and you lose all feeling of nervousness and you just go into racing mode. One thing I wanted to point out that is very dear to me is the fact that from the front of the pack dang near to the back of the pack, if you look at the karts that came in, there were sponsorships front to back on those karts, stickers front to back on those karts, and then there was me. I have nothing more than my number and this logo, the FDE logo on the kart, and that is it. There is no mommy and daddy money. There is no sponsorship money. There is no tips or help from anybody at the track because I haven't talked to anybody yet, or nobody's come forward to help me out. It has been literally reading as much material as I can, taking notes to the best of my ability, reviewing the notes as best that I can, and on track days, just paying attention to what the kart does, what it likes, what it doesn't, and just going from there. So to finish where we finished is very exciting because this was on us. We did this. And to me, it is such an overwhelming fact and a huge booster as to keep driving me to push faster and go further with this. I'm almost speechless because of how happy I am with the results. So where did we end up? Out of 19 karts, I finished in 5th place. That to me is unbelievable. More than what I could have ever asked for, and I cannot just get over it. It's taken a while to really let that sink in. And the reason is because, like I tried explaining, when you're at the back of the pack and you see 18 karts in front of you, that is intimidating as heck because you've got a lot of work to do. But when you're in the front and you only see just a couple karts in front of you, you can't see what's behind you. Mentally, you don't see what is truly going on. And I only saw 2 karts in front of me. I started position in 4th for the feature. So I was outside second in. So there's only a guy next to me and 2 carts in front. That's it. That's all that I saw. So mentally, I'm not seeing how big this really is because I can't see behind me. But watching the footage, I cannot believe how amazing this weekend was. To overcome everything that has led up to this point, to really push the metal against some good racers, and to succeed to the point of where we did and end up where we did is just a huge weight lifted off my shoulder, and I'm speechless. I don't know what else to say about it. One thing I do want to point out is that it was 109 degrees, the heat index was, of that day. It was a super hot day, and because of it, had a couple technical difficulties. The GoPro got so hot that in Heat 2, it didn't even want to turn on. Unfortunately, I don't have the GoPro footage of Heat 2, but Jayla was filming on her phone, and so we have that footage. Same with the feature, because the GoPro got so hot, it basically just depleted a lot of the battery. So I went into the feature what looked like basically was 20 or 30% of the battery. So it recorded a good chunk of the race, but it didn't get all of it. Luckily, there was phone footage that I will be using, and you guys can see how things finished out. And it's really kind of a neat perspective to see it both from my point of view as well as people outside looking at our race. One thing I did know about how this weekend went is I am so happy that I am using a plastic body. So there's 2 types of body. There's a plastic and fiberglass. Fiberglass is very popular, it's strong, but I could not believe the amount of carts that were ripped apart, torn apart, broken, fiberglass just breaking left or right this weekend. It was absolutely amazing to me, and I am so glad I have a plastic body because I was up on people's carts. I was smashing into people just because of how the racing was. People were hitting me from behind, which smashed me into the cart in front. The cart in front were brake checking. They were like, the body took an amazing amount of abuse, and I'm so glad that I have a plastic body and not fiberglass, because that fiberglass body, it would have been destroyed if it had been on my cart. So I'm super happy with that. So with that, let's get into Heat 1. And let me explain a little bit about Heat 1, what I felt, what I saw, and how it went. The way that they formatted this race is that because there were 19 of us, they couldn't run heats with 19 people. So what they did is they split the group up in an A group and a B group. A group was not any better than B group, it was just how they split them up. I was in the B group. So the way they do it is P-pick, you get assigned a random number. That number defines where you are in the lineup for the heat. I ended up pulling a number that put me on pole position for Heat 1. So what that means is that I am number 1 in a field of 9. And the way this system works is that you gain points by how you progress in each race. Well, if you're P1, the only direction you can go is either maintain P1 or go backwards. And I don't know if you lose points, but you definitely don't gain points by going backwards. So Heat 1, extremely nervous. I've got 9 guys behind me. None of the guys that was in my group were KC locals. I think the rest of the KC locals got put in the A main. So I had 9 guys behind me that I've never raced with before. And I have no idea if my cart is fast. I have no idea if this cart is going to hold. So I'm extremely nervous about this. I just had to go out and give it everything that I got based off of practice 1 and practice 2 and what I noticed about tire pressures. I noticed something a little bit different from practice 1 and practice 2 with tire pressures. So I took that into account, set tire pressures where I wanted them to be, and just was like, let's see what happens. I was able to hold off the entire group for the entire heat. It was very nerve-wracking. I didn't feel nerves during the race, but before it, and even thinking about it after, I was even nervous watching the footage. So the guy behind me, number 55, I never got his name, super cool guy. He was faster than me. Here's the thing. I could feel him behind me just pushing me. So I knew he was there the entire race. And every single lap, I could feel him nudging me. He was faster. I will give him that. And the reason is because my gearing was off just a little bit compared to his. I couldn't go any faster because the motor was literally out of speed. It couldn't RPM anymore. I was held back from engine RPM basically. And at the end of the heat, I recognized that. and notice, all right, I need to make a gearing adjustment because they are faster than me and the engine is what's slowing me down. So if I reduce a gear in the back, that gives me more speed. But overall, it was such a cool experience to have P position, not knowing how I'm going to do, and coming off the track, maintaining that P position. And even after the race, you'll see it on the footage off to the left when he comes around. He looks behind and he gives me a thumbs up. Like, he knew it was a good race. I knew it was a good race. Some other people came up and said that was good racing. I don't know where we were compared to the rest of the field, but it was good racing. I was able to hold him off to the best of my ability. I just followed what line I knew and it worked. So enjoy the heat. So heat 2. As I said in the beginning, the GoPro didn't want to turn on, so unfortunately the footage is from behind a chain link fence on a phone. So it's not the easiest thing to look at, so I'm going to have the editor put a position counter per lap, explaining where I'm at so you can kind of follow along. The only change that I made really was that I made a gear change in the back. I kept the tires the same, but I went down a gear on the back to give me some more speed, and I knew that I needed to do that based off of the heat before. So I started first in the first heat, which they invert the field. So first goes last, last goes to first, and they just invert everything. So I started last, and I honestly was not as nervous because I couldn't go backwards. Obviously, I could only go forward. So it was just a matter of how far forward can I get? And I'll be danged if I didn't just bull rush right through that thing throughout the entire race until the end. First lap, I was last place, obviously. By the second lap, I'd gone to fourth, third lap, fourth lap, third place, fifth lap to second place, sixth lap in, I went straight to first, then first again, and then to fifth on the final last lap. Here's what happened. I had raced my way up all the way to first, and I was even gapping the people behind me. On the final lap, coming out of turn 4, the final turn out of the corner to take the checkered flag, lap traffic was up high and dove down deep, and I just went right into lap traffic. It was very infuriating. It was very frustrating, and I spoke to the gentleman after about it, and I kept my composure. I kept calm, but I will say that to any driver, if you know you are slow, if it's towards the end of the race, you need to be mentally aware to stay high. Because worst case scenario is exactly what happened. You be involved with a wreck that can potentially ruin the leader's position, as it did me. So I hit lap traffic coming out of turn 4, went up under the track. 4 people came by from behind me because the car had slowed down, obviously, and I crossed the finish line in 5th. I was so devastated at that, but I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't change it. It's just what it is. And had I taken that first place like I was, that may have set me up, no lie, to be pole position of the entire feature. Maybe. Worst case scenario, probably second. But best case scenario based off of the racing, it probably would have been a toss-up between me and the guy that won the race that night of first position. I had the potential to be pole position of 19 karts. That is mind-blowing to me. Absolutely mind-blowing to me. And it speaks for itself in what it could have been. Of 19 karts, sponsored karts, newer karts, good tires, good setup, everything. And I had the potential and the opportunity to be #1 spot when the feature rolled around. Unreal. Unreal what it could have been. But like I said, I couldn't do anything about it. Like I said, the footage isn't the best. The lap counter or position counter should help. So take a look. Here it is. feature race. Oh my gosh. Such a fun experience racing with all these people. 19 karts, unbelievable amount of fun to have, and such a great crew as well. So like I said, I started in 4th position. They start us in double file line. You've got an inside group and an outside group. And 4th position means I'm on the outside group, 2nd kart in. So like I said at the beginning, the only person I know is the person inside of me and the 2 karts in front of me. I will note and I will say that the first place driver, from what I understand and what I gather, is an amazing driver. Has taken 12th at Southern Nationals, has won countless numbers of races. Just overall an amazing driver, and it showed. I mean, had we not had any cautions or anything like that, he possibly might have lapped the entire field. He was good, and he was pulling away. He was quick. I looked at the numbers, and holy moly, was he flying. So, good job for him. But you know, that's the point. That's the reason I wanted to do this whole experience, was to show that you can have old equipment, used equipment, not the best of the setup in the world, and still be locally very competitive. And that is exactly what I got across on this experience in this race here, is that I didn't have the newest stuff. I don't have the best setup. Who knows? That car could probably be a half a second faster if I had a better setup. But to the best of my ability, the best of my driving, and the best of what the setup is, it is competitive, even in a huge pack like this. And that is what is very rewarding about this, is that his whole experience has been building up to show that you can do this. So when the race started, nobody ever really likes to be the outside line, because normally the inside line will take the best path, the best line on the track while the rubber is. But the way this track was set up that night, that track was very good for 2.5 lines is what I would call it. So basically you could fit 2.5 karts. It's where the track would hold. So being on the outside, I was actually very comfortable starting there. Because of it, once the green flag dropped, I was very comfortable just sending that thing full bore into the corners on the outside, knowing that it would hold and it would stick, and it did. Unfortunately, just like every other time you have an inside line, most likely you'll get freight trained a little bit. And what that means is that karts are front to back, bumper to bumper, and they're just pushing each other the entire field. And if you're on the outside and you don't have that, it's called getting freight trained, and it's just like everybody going by you, which is the worst thing to ever experience if you never have. Luckily, it wasn't too bad. There was a small freight train to the point where I dropped back to 6th, maybe 7th position, and it was a fight through the entire race to get back. I ended up getting on top of some karts, not once, not twice, multiple times, just because of the way the racing was. It was very aggressive racing. It was good racing. I took some opportunities to try to squeeze myself into areas that, if it was perfect, it would be a great opportunity to squeeze in. And in doing so, I didn't time it right, didn't get it right, and ended up on a couple karts. It broke apart. The front plastic and the side piece held together, but luckily I have a brace that holds it all together. So you'll see it's just flopping a little bit, but it held out through the entire race. I was a little bit worried, not gonna lie, when the cautions would come out and I could see it, and I'm just like, ah, crap, please don't fall apart. But again, that's the good thing about having plastic, is it bends, it shifts, it moves, but it doesn't break completely and can be very catastrophic. So again, very, very glad that I'm using plastic bodies. During the race, we had a red flag moment. And a red flag moment is when they stop everybody on the track. You hit the red flag and everybody just stops. The reason for that most of the time is that there has been an accident that was caused that is very serious. And there was. A cart had ended up flipping and landed on top of a person. I'm trying to get the footage if I can. It's going to be from F24 Life. Shout out to him. Check him out. I have him in the description below. He's another person that races at the track. If I can get the footage from him, thank you in advance. If not, then explaining this basically is a cart flipped and again landed on top of the guy. Now, if you watch the footage, it looks like it's preventable. It looks like it could have been way worse, but I know firsthand what it is like to have the unexpected happen. I found an old video of when I was down in Birmingham, Alabama, when I raced at Talladega. This exact same thing happened to me, and I want to show you guys how quick an accident like this can happen, and there's nothing you can do because you are not trained to see what's about to happen in front of you And by the time your mind processes what to do, it's too late, you're already there. So here's a quick clip. This is hopefully the crash that happened, if I can get the footage. This is also the footage of what happened in Talladega. You can even watch it time and time again about how the accident, to me, was unavoidable, because where the accident happened in front of me, I couldn't see until the cart in front of me moved. And by the time the cart in front of me moved and I brought my eyesight back to where and why he moved, it was too late. So take a look real quick. So as you can see, it can come out of nowhere and it can be pretty bad. During that wreck, I remember it knocked the wind out of me. The way that some of these seats are designed is that they're plastic seats, but some of them have a plastic rib container that holds you in the seat so that when you're turning right, it just holds you there and doesn't throw you around. What happened is when the cart went sideways, the cart went up and that thing held me into that seat. And when it came down sideways, I had been thrown out enough, but I was angled to the point where that little piece that comes around just dug into my ribs. And so that whole cart had just landed right on top of me in one specific spot. And as you'll see, the cart went spinning. I landed on the ground and I'm out of air. I'm wheezing. I lost my breath. And luckily, nothing worse happened. That's why we wear protective gear. And I'm very happy that I did and thankful that everything worked out all right. So back to the main race, looking at the stats, my fastest lap times were faster than everybody in front of me besides the first place guy. Let me repeat that. I was faster than everybody in front of me on our fastest laps than the guy that won the race. This just all blows my mind as to how well this kart is doing. Another thing I wanted to point out is I was not used to the way the restarts were being handled. So normally when we do a restart, out of turn 4 is usually when you're mid full speed coming into the green flag. That's what I'm used to. The way that this guy was starting his restarts, and I guess they just let it go, is that on the backside of the track, not even going into turn 3 yet, he was flooring it so that by the time you came into turn 3, out of turn 4, over the green flag, you were basically full gas, full speed. I was not used to that. It took me a couple cautions to realize that I need to be on the gas way before what I'm used to. You know, if you go watch Heat 1 where I'm in pole position, we don't start going fast until roughly halfway between turn 3 and 4. But the way this driver restarted is we were full bore, basically where I would start accelerating, and that's the way it has been for us locally. So it took a little bit to get used to that, and because of it, I lost ground in the races for sure. I did notice watching the footage that as the crew in front of me started pulling away a little bit more, I probably got a little flustered and noticed that I was not following the same line as I was before when I was caught up to the group. I kept trying to force the cart into where I wanted it to go, hoping it would stick, hoping to gain ground. I was actually doing the opposite and lugging the car just a little bit, which enabled the group in front of me to get further away. So that's something I'm gonna have to remember, is that even if you get a little bit of gap between the rest of the group, continue and maintain your line, your positioning. All in all, at the end of the feature, looking at the numbers, looking at the data and everything, I do think that I could have gone down one more gear on the rear and maybe gained a little bit more speed for the RPM that the motor was turning. I say that now because the race is over and I have no way to test it, but just looking at the data and the way things felt, I feel like I could have gone just a little bit faster. But either way, I can't complain with how things ended. This has been an absolute amazing experience. I'm dumbfounded. I don't even know what to say anymore. I'm just extremely, extremely pleased with how this has become to closure with this big race. They do come, I think, 1 or 2 more times, so I'm definitely looking forward to having them back and doing this again. The way the feature race works is that the GoPro got a good amount of footage, but it didn't get all of it. I'm gonna have the editor try this out, is do a picture-in-picture of mainly focusing on the GoPro and having a little picture-in-picture of the footage from the phone, showing it from a perspective view. And then hopefully, if things work out, the GoPro footage, once it ends, the footage from the phone will go full screen and you guys will get to see it from an outsider's perspective. That's the best I could do with what I'm dealt with. Again, just technical problems on a very, very, very hot day. So enjoy. Thanks for coming along, and I'm looking forward to the next race.
let's go.